I think there's a allegation from wife that Mr. Eastman's opening a bunch of credit cards and ringing them up, which is not true.
The defendant, Michelle, vacate the home on August 30th.
Ms. Eastman has an adult daughter whose name escapes me who lives there. She's not subject to the jurisdiction of this court. She's a third party.
After the divorce was filed, the Mrs. Eastman made some pretty horrendous accusations against Mr. Eastman and the children.
Your Honor, he also refinanced the home using my income and my name.
The record, this matter is before the court for a pre-trial conference, in addition to the plaintiff's motion for mutual restraining order, as well as temporary exclusive use of the marital home on Plank Street. So Attorney Steven Rotenberg is present. Is Michelle Eastman, is she present, Mr. Rotenberg?
No, she is not, and I sort of take the blame for that. The original notice for the motion, I was aware of the pretrial, but the original notice for the hearing went into my spam folder. So I didn't know about this until Mr. Jedinak called me up and said you were looking for me and wondering where I was. And Ms. Eastman cannot attend because A, she didn't know about this till I called her. I did speak to her ultimately. And B, she works for Lake Erie Transit and she'd probably lose her job if she zoomed in on this hearing. And I apologize for that.
All right, Mr. Rotenberg, the notice, the proof of service filed, Mr. Jedinak indicates copy of the motion notice hearing and was mailed to you.
So it was mailed. I did a Scrivener's error. And if you take a look, some of the stuff says my old office address on Telegraph Road, and some of it says the new address on Northwestern Highway. Again, Scrivener's error. I'm my own typist. I screwed up.
Okay.
Okay. I own this, at least for those parts of it.
All right, we'll get through this. This is a 6-year marriage, no children. What are the issues? I'll start with you, Mr. Jedinak. We obviously have real property and personal property division. Is that correct?
Personal property, real property might be the biggest contest here. Mr. Eastman would claim it as a premarital asset. The wife's going to claim equity in the home. I think the resolution is going to be somewhere in the middle. He's the owner and he pays the mortgage and all the bills. The parties don't have any pensions. There's no minor children. I know there might be a claim for spousal support from wife. She works at Lake Erie Transit. My client's on medical retirement and Social Security. It's a 6-year marriage. So the wife may make that an issue. There's no joint accounts left. The parties have minimal money in separate bank accounts at this point. They each have a vehicle. There's some personal property. We don't think there's that much debt, although I think there's a allegation from wife that Mr. Eastman's opening a bunch of credit cards and ringing them up, which is not true. But he only identifies one credit card having about $3,000 of debt. So it's a fairly modest marital estate.
Okay, thank you. And obviously with respect to the real estate, even though Mr. Eastman made the mortgage payments, obviously, arguably the defendant, Michelle, is entitled to half of the increased value over the period of the 6-year marriage.
There's also an old.
We need to get look at some SEVs. Court suggests SEVs from the date of marriage to current, as opposed to having to expend the money for an appraisal, historical appraisal and a current appraisal. That can get expensive. So the court's suggesting the parties look at SEVs, try to find some middle ground.
There's also an old claim,
that issue.
Judge.
Hold on, I'm sorry. Let me just finish, Mr. Rotenberg.
Okay.
That's what the court's suggesting. In the debt, there's about just one credit card. Is that correct?
Now he identifies, yes. I don't know if she has other accounts.
Not sure, Judge. I don't have my thing in front of me, but there are some debts. So their debts are an issue. I don't think they're huge, but we haven't quite determined what they were. Again, I just figured out this morning that Mr. Jedinak sent the financials actually before I sent them to him. So, you know, he did. I have not had a chance to review them. I just know that I've got them.
I'm just noting for the court's information, there's an issue of unsecured debt, personal property division, as well as real property division. I don't see without further information, I don't see this being a spousal support case. But in any event, that's just for the court's information. How much the two of you talked with Ms. Patrick this morning? She's indicated the two of you are available to mediate on September 16th at 1:30. Will discovery have been completed by then? I don't want to waste everyone's time. I don't want to waste a valuable mediation slot.
What do you think, Steve?
I think a market appraisal might be what we need at this point. I've looked at his financial verification forms. Hopefully he has mine. So I don't think there's a lot for accounts we need to exchange, unless you're saying we're hiding something. But a market appraisal for mediation is what we probably need.
But
It's
I
a
think
month
the
away.
SCV, may I interject? The SCV, we can probably figure out what the multiplier is for an actual value, what the discount or premium is for the location. Because I know 2 times whatever works for that, but we can also back it out and figure it out with price sales and say, oh, it's really 2.3 or 1.8 or whatever. That might be a way to
work through. Sounds like you can work through that together in terms of without having to incur the expense of a formal appraisal, a fair market current. I think a fair market analysis, maybe by a realtor would help, or look at SCVs, compare the SCVs today and back when the parties got married 6 years ago. So this works with both your schedule. It will be a Zoom mediation with Ms. Patrick. Ms. Patrick, can you kindly reference your Zoom ID number on this?
Yes, Your Honor, but I did verbally give it to both parties, but yes.
Oh, okay. All right. That's fine. Ms. Patrick has also recommended that the court enter order this morning, enter a mutual restraining order conserving property. That appears to be appropriate. And further that the defendant, Michelle, vacate the home on August 30th. Mr. Rotenberg, did you discuss that recommendation with your client this morning?
I did very briefly. Hang on, Judge. There's a little background noise. I have a machine just shutting itself down behind me. Okay, here's the issue that we have. Number one, I didn't know about this. And generally, landlord-tenant issues and evictions are governed by a different set of laws rather than family law. And as Mr. Jedinak stated, and I would have brought up, Ms. Eastman has an adult daughter whose name escapes me, who lives there. She's not subject to the jurisdiction of this court. She's a third party. The court doesn't have, so there's no personal jurisdiction over her. And there's no subject matter jurisdiction over her because she does have a tenancy. She's been living there for a while. So they'd have to give her a 30-day notice to quit and do the whole rigmarole through the district court to remove her. So even if
this court's not concerned, Mr. Rotenberg, hold on. This court's not concerned about a third party. So if there's some other person living there, that's between, hold on, Mr. Rotenberg, please.
Okay.
I could care less about a third party. And this is the first time I've heard about a third party. Mr. Jedinak, you need to take other action to evict that person. We're going to talk about these parties, Mark and Michelle. So the question, Mr. Rotenberg, is Michelle, does she oppose this recommendation that she vacate on August 30th?
Yes, she does. She'd like a little bit more time. We're asking for about 45 to 60 days so she can find a new place to live, because otherwise she'll be homeless.
Okay, well, well, obviously you put the court in a difficult situation because that's the recommendation of Ms. Patrick that she vacate at the end of the month, but your client's not here.
I know, because she didn't know about this because it went,
Hold on, Mr. Jedinak, Mr. Rotenberg, you were mailed a notice. You said it's on you, so it's not your client's fault. You acknowledge you take responsibility for not checking your mail.
No, it went to my spam folder, Judge. As for the mail, it went to the wrong address because of a Scrivener's error by me. But the practical matter is yes, you can say to Ms. Eastman, move, but there's still maybe a third party there who's not my client.
I could care less about a third party. I don't want to hear about a third party. I have no jurisdiction over a third party. I agree, Mr. Rotenberg, so I could care less who that party is. This court has no authority over a third party that might be residing in the home. The court, Mr. Jedinak, is reluctant to order that she vacate without her being here and participating.
Then I want a very brief adjournment, Your Honor, so we can address this. And Mr. Eastman's been pretty patient regarding this.
And I'd be fine with doing this as quickly as we can.
Okay, the court will adjourn to 9:15 tomorrow morning. Are you both available?
Yeah, I am.
We could be here.
Okay, I'm going to hold this order. I'm going to have the parties. I don't know if Ms. Patrick's available again tomorrow, but let's get her here. I want her to participate, and we'll continue. So 9:15 tomorrow. Okay, we've had 24 hours since we last appeared for the council to confer with each other and their respective clients. It seems like the only main issue is the marital home. If plaintiff requests that defendant vacate the marital home. Right, met with Ms. Patrick yesterday. Ms. Patrick made a recommendation that the defendant vacate the home on Plank Road on before August 30th, which is in 2 weeks. The court did not adopt that. It would put the matter to today, so Ms. Eastman can be present. And the parties have conferred briefly with Ms. LaPrade this morning. Very briefly, Mr. Jedinak, Mr. Rotenberg, have the parties been able to reach agreement on that remaining issue?
No,
No, Your Honor. The discussions didn't go anywhere. I'm asking the court to follow Ms. Patrick's recommendation.
and we're rejecting Ms. Patrick's recommendation because a couple things. First of all, originally when we were discussing this yesterday, she was going to give a longer period. Then she snapped it back. But in any event, getting back to that third party issue that I know the court isn't interested in, while yes, you can order Ms. Eastman to leave the marital home, that doesn't necessarily give Mr. Eastman the relief that he wants, because he still won't be able to regain possession of it unless he evicts Ms. Eastman's adult daughter, who also has a tenancy there. So it'd be a 30-day notice.
That's another issue,
quit,
Mr.
and
That's another
what
issue,
I'm-
Mr. Rotenberg. That's
so what I'm-
correct. I mean, the court can't evict a third party. The court has no
right,
jurisdiction
right. So
over
what I'm saying,
a neighbor, a girlfriend, a boyfriend, an adult daughter. So Mr. Jedinak,
so you can order Mrs. Eastman to leave, but that doesn't really give him the relief that he wants. He wants
Understood.
to be able to re-enter
fully
the house.
understood, fully agree, Mr. Rotenberg. This court cannot order a third party to vacate.
We would like a
Jedinak,
longer period of time. We would like a longer period of time. That's all.
Okay, when are you proposing? When is your client proposing to vacate? That was the whole purpose of having this discussion, so both sides could sort of talk, reach your own agreement. If they can't reach agreement, then the court's gonna make a decision.
Michelle, can you be out in 30 days?
I would by October 1st, if possible.
And that would be consistent with the timeline for an eviction anyhow, Judge.
Well, but this
Because
is
that'd
not
be
an
about
eviction.
45
This
days.
is not an eviction, and Mr. Rotenberg, there's no requirement for notices to quit and so forth.
I'm
Yes.
talking about the third party. I'm talking about the third party. I'm trying to get a global resolution to this issue.
Well,
the
any
third-
order with
the
this
third
court would not
part- the
affect the
third-
third party.
I'll notice to quit the third party. I'll call the bluff. I don't think she'll stay if Miss Eastman leaves, though.
Would
We'll go
stay
through the
because- she
we'll go
would
through the
stay because
process
she
if we have
lives-
to.
She works here in Dundee and she would.
We'll go through the process, and again, we won't throw her out without a legal eviction order, but if we have to do that, we're gonna do that.
All right, and Mr. Jedinak, you allege that this marital home it's a premarital asset, correct? Mr. Eastman's name was never put on the home.
That's correct.
But she does
She's
have
still-
an
she's still-
OT claim to it.
Hold on, Mr. Rotenberg. Can I please finish, Mr. Rotenberg? Then I'll stop and you can talk the rest of the morning. I just had a few questions, Mr. Jedinak. I'm trying to understand the issue. Premarital asset, Mr. Eastman's name, and they're put on the property. The party's been married for 6 years. Miss Eastman obviously has some interest in that equity, the increased equity of the home. Do you agree with that, Mr. Jedinak?
That's possible, yes. I agree, that's arguable. Yep.
Well, obviously, I don't know if there were any improvements were made, obviously it just increased in value over the 6 years of marriage. So she has some interest. So there's got to be either a historical appraisal of what the value was back when the parties got married and what it's worth now, or you can look at the SCVs as we talked about yesterday and to see what it's increased in value. And she's entitled to half of that increased value. So just trying to understand the basis. Is Miss Eastman, is she committing any waste to the property?
We don't know that. I know our big issue is Mr. Eastman has 3 minor children, 14, 12, 10. They stepped out to stay at the parents' homes on the street, but he's trying to get his children back into that home. And
Okay.
Mrs. Eastman doesn't have minor children. The daughter is 19.
When did,
Judge,
what was the reason for Mr. Eastman vacating the home?
After the divorce was filed, the Mrs. Eastman made some pretty horrendous accusations against Mr. Eastman and the children, and to avoid discord or exposing the children to the ugliness, he just took them out temporarily down the street, and we filed this motion for exclusive use.
Okay. So he's living with his parents down the street, but that would now affect their schooling, correct? They're still in the same school district and still go
That's
to
correct,
school?
Dundee. Yes.
Well, the court doesn't really see any urgency to the matter, Mr. Jedinak. But if Miss Eastman, Mr. Eastman isn't entitled to possession of that property, he can move back, but he's not willing to move back because he's concerned of what is there, domestic violence? I mean, there's nothing that prevents him from moving back this weekend.
She has made allegations of what CPS, domestic violence. We just
All right.
don't want the children exposed to that. They can't stay under the same roof. We don't want
Right.
that.
Understood.
again, Judge, this is a DO case, and the children are not parties to this case either.
Understood. Right, the parties have agreed to mediation on September 16th, 2024 at 1:30 p.m. So at this point in time, the court will reserve decision on that request, Mr. Jedinak, until September 16th, 2024 at 1 p.m. The court's going to strongly suggest to Ms. Eastman to find other arrangements because the court could very well order that she vacate shortly after that September 16th mediation. I'm allowed the parties to discuss it at mediation. Again, maybe by then you can have some value on the home, maybe a payment to Ms. Eastman will allow her to make a down payment on other housing. But if in fact if Mr. Eastman wants to go over there and just examine the home, I understand he doesn't want to put the children in that environment, he can examine it. If in fact there's any waste or damage being committed to the property, the court will certainly order that Mr. Eastman vacate if she's doing any damage to that home, Mr. Jedinak. So the court suggests Mr. Eastman go over and inspect it. He has the right to go over and inspect it, and if there's any damage, then to bring it back before the court and an emergency motion. We'll give you a very quick hearing date. Otherwise, the court will address this on September 16th at 1:30. That will be an issue. If it's not resolved, the court will address it at that time.
Judge,
The court's simply going to defer decision on that till September 16th at 1:30 p.m. This mediation will be with Ms. Patrick by Zoom, and there will be a pretrial following that, continued pretrial.
Judge, I would ask that if Mr. Eastman inspects, to keep the peace, I would ask that there be a police escort. Not that I expect there to be any trouble, but just to make sure that everybody is on their best behavior.
They won't
Mrs.
do
Eastman's
that. It's a civil matter, and unless there's a assaultive offense, the police will not go out and just do courtesy escorts, Mr. Rotenberg. Now, if she wants to hire a private retired officer, she can do that. But there's no requirement that Mr. Eastman provide notice to go back to his own home. So if he wants to go over, it might be, I'll leave it to him whether or not maybe the attorneys can talk, set up a time this weekend that Mr. Eastman can go over there sometime today or this weekend. I'll leave that to counsel to discuss that.
He comes over weekly to pick up his mail. He knows the house is in perfect accord. He also comes over and mows the lawn.
Right.
Okay, then in
Right,
which case
then-
we probably don't need the escort then. Then we're fine.
That's when she's not there, though. That's
Yes, exactly.
Okay, all right.
And I have video cameras on the house and in the
Right.
house.
So,
All right.
Miss Eastman, it's going to be, obviously, you're going to have to vacate at some point in time. So the court's suggesting, don't wait till the last minute. Look for,
No, I've been looking, Your
start
Honor,
packing
and
up,
that's
look
why
at
I asked for
alternatives for,
October.
and perhaps maybe the parties can work out some financial resolution in the interim about her interest in the home, and that payment to her would allow her to vacate sooner than later.
Your Honor, he also refinanced the home using my income and my name.
No, I did not. It's
We're
everything
gonna have to investigate that. I don't have any
is good.
actual, I don't have,
Because it's,
No.
Jedinak, stop. I don't have evidence of that at the moment. It may exist, it may not exist. If it exists, we'll go that way. That's not the topic of today's conversation. Okay?
Court would encourage counsel to talk between now and September 16th. Maybe you can resolve the whole matter. You can accept your personal property. Maybe you can start to put together, each side can put together a list of what personal property they want. So anyway, we'll see everyone on September 16th with a pretrial to follow.
Thank you, Judge.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you all. You can conclude.
Thanks.
You can zoom out, have a good rest of the day.